The Holy Gospel, according to Matthew, the 25th chapter. Jesus said, "When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, then he will sit on the throne of his glory. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate people one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he will put the sheep at his right hand and the goats at the left. Then the king will say to those at his right hand, 'Come, you that are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me.' Then the righteous will answer him, 'Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry and gave you food, or thirsty and gave you something to drink? And when was it that we saw you a stranger and welcomed you, or naked and gave you clothing? And when was it that we saw you sick or in prison and visited you?' And the king will answer them, 'Truly I tell you, just as you did it to one of the least of these who are the members of my family, you did it to me.' Then he will say to those at his left hand, 'You that are accursed, depart from me into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me no food. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not welcome me, naked, and you did not give me clothing, sick and in prison, and you did not visit me.' Then they will also answer, 'Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or naked or sick or in prison and did not take care of you?' Then he will answer them, 'Truly I tell you, just as you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it to me.' And these will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous into eternal life." This is the gospel of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Please be seated. So imagine that an alien has come to Earth. Here it is. You're alien. Go with me here. The reason this alien came to Earth was to go back home with a report about what the purpose of human life is on this planet. And the alien had 1 week to do this. And to accomplish this mission, this particular alien has chosen, out of the over 7 billion people on this planet, to follow you. Now, doesn't that make you feel special? But now don't get scared. Don't think like Sigourney Weaver and Alien. Think something more like Alf. I mean, this is a friendly alien, a nice alien, a benevolent alien. And in fact, you can't even see it. You don't know it's there. It doesn't interfere with you. It doesn't influence anything that you're doing. And by the way, this alien came exactly 1 week ago, 8:48 a.m. last Sunday. And so now this alien is heading back home. We'll call its home Glaxor 12, and it has to file a report. And it's quite amazing how much paperwork is involved with alien life, quite honestly. But that's another issue. But this alien has to file a report. I thought that was funny. Has to file a report based on the past week of your life in order to answer the question, what is the purpose of life? So think back about the last 7 days of your life as that alien followed you and took meticulous notes. Now, it's a benevolent alien, but it's not omniscient. It couldn't read your mind or anything, but it saw everything you did and heard everything you said, and it read your texts and emails and social media. And so based on the last 7 days of your life, what answer would the alien have to report to the question, what is the purpose of life? So what did you do? What did you say? Who did you encounter? How'd you spend your time? Your money? What will that alien's report be back to the citizens of Glaxor 12 about the purpose of your life, as evidenced by the last week? Are you satisfied with the alien's report? And what would that report be if the alien had followed you for the last month or last year? Now, I don't know what the alien would report about you specifically, but my hunch is that some or many or maybe even most of our lives would tell the same story about the purpose of life that we're all told or really sold from early on. We're told that the purpose of life is winning and wealth. You know, second place is the first loser. The one who dies with the most toys wins. Winning and wealth. We're taught from an early age to value these things above most everything else. And maybe it feels a little coarse to put it so baldly, but the reality is that the answer to the question, what is the purpose of life for so many, is winning and wealth. Is that it, though? John Ortberg tells the story about his grandma, who was a tremendous Monopoly player. And she was a grandma who did not go easy on the kids when they played the game. Grandma always won. Always. So for years, John Ortberg lost at Monopoly to Grandma. He would not pass go, would not collect $200. Until finally the day came when he won. He beat Grandma. And so he got excited. So he got up and celebrated. He cheered. He danced. If it had existed in the day, he probably would have flossed. I can't floss, but maybe you can, or whatever the Fortnite dance is of his day. He was probably taunted Grandma a little bit. And all the while that he was celebrating, Grandma was there at the board and just taking all the pieces and all the stuff from the board and putting it away. And he kept dancing and then eventually ran out of energy, and she just sat there quietly putting everything away. And then she said this to him. Just remember, when it's all over, it all goes back in the box. All the houses, all the money, all of it. It all goes back in the box. It might just be that winning and wealth are not the purpose of life, because it all goes back in the box. Brian Zond gets at it this way. He asks this: deep down inside, don't we at least suspect we are really made for shared relationship and not competitive acquisition? And that's a great phrase, competitive acquisition, winning and wealth. And I think we do have a yearning for life to be about more than competitive acquisition. That's what we hear about in our reading from Matthew 25 today. That story about the sheep and the goats. Now, maybe you heard Jesus' words there and thought they were kind of scary, what with all that talk about judgment and fire and stuff like that. Or maybe you heard Jesus' words about the sheep and the goats and you thought, oh man, I didn't feed all the hungry and I didn't visit many people in prison, but Jesus, do you at least grade on a curve? I didn't do perfect, but I was better than that guy. Or maybe you hear these words and you think that the purpose of this life is to get to heaven. And while that seems religious and holy because we want to go to heaven, that's not actually a very good answer to this question. Because that would boil down to the purpose of this life being to escape from it. That seems silly. Because this life is a gift from God. And we don't want to denigrate or degrade this gift. This life is supremely important. So what if these words from Jesus today are not intended to scare or intimidate, but to give hope? And what if they're not so much about life in heaven later, but about life here and now. I mean, listen to this invitation Jesus offers. Come, you that are blessed by my Father, inherit. It's a gift, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me. Huh? When we do that? And Jesus continues, truly I tell you, just as you did it to one of the least of these who are members of my family, you did it to me. Jesus is saying it's not about winning and wealth. It's not about competitive acquisition. Life is somehow about shared relationship. It's about seeing Jesus in the last, the least, and the lost, and standing in solidarity with them. And that sheep and the goats thing is not, like you're a sheep, and you're you're definitely a goat. And you're a sheep, you're a goat, you're a sheep, you're a goat, you're a sheep, goat. I don't know why the William Tell overture always comes into mind with that. It's not that. It's that Jesus blesses our sheep-like tendencies, and Jesus redeems us from our goat-like tendencies. Because my guess is that your aliens report had both of them in it. And Jesus works to encourage our sheep things and turn us away from our goat things. And that eternal life promised by Jesus starts now. And it starts in shared relationship. So if the purpose of life is not winning in wealth, and because we know all those things go back in the box, and if the purpose of life is not getting to heaven because Jesus has taken care of it and we don't need to worry about our salvation, well, then what is the purpose of life? Well, here's one strong possibility I came across recently. Indispensable love synergy. So you can go impress your friends and tell them that the purpose of life is indispensable love synergy. You're not going to tell your friends, are you? All right. I get it. It's kind of a goofy phrase, and I'll admit it's not mine. It comes from the author Thomas J. Oord. So let's just break that down, starting with love. You see, as followers of Jesus, we look first to what Jesus has to say about love. When he was asked what the greatest commandment is, Jesus said this in Matthew 22. He said, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the greatest and first commandment, and a second one is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself." Love God and love others. And how do you love God? Well, that sheep and goats thing tells us that we love God, we love Jesus by caring for and loving the least of these. Love God, love others. What about synergy? Well, synergy means we don't do this alone. It's about community with God and others. Synergy is about working together with others, and it's a word that the biblical writers use to describe how we work together with God, because more good happens when we work together with God and others. Synergy. And then what about indispensable? Well, simply put, you matter. I matter. God needs you. You're not optional. You are not an afterthought. God has created you, and God is depending on you to be who God has created you to be. You are indispensable. This is what Mary Oliver captured in her poem entitled, "Nothing is Too Small Not to Be Wondered About." The cricket doesn't wonder if there's a heaven or if there's room for him. It's fall. Romance is over. Still, he sings. If he can, he enters a house through the tiniest crack in the door. Then the house grows colder. He sings slower and slower. Then nothing. This must mean something, I don't know what. But certainly it doesn't mean he hasn't been an excellent cricket all his life. Now, it's an audacious thing for God to depend on us, for God to depend on you to be who God created you to be. Yet, like the cricket, God made you excellent and indispensable. Ralph Waldo Emerson put it this way: the purpose of life is not to be happy, it is to be useful, to be honorable, to be compassionate, to have it make some difference that you have lived and lived well. Which sounds like indispensable love, synergy. You are needed to love God and others in community with them. And maybe this resonates with you, or maybe you think it doesn't hold any water. I don't know. I can't give you 3 steps to a life filled with purpose, and I can't prescribe anything, but maybe I can try to describe my own experience of indispensable love synergy. Now, as some of you know, my wife Karen is also a pastor, which is why you may have never ever seen her. So I can tell you she does exist. She's real. But she's served in Coon Rapids at Faith Lutheran Church for the last 5 years. And yet after a long process of discernment, she decided to leave her call in order to finish her graduate work at St. Kate's so she can become a spiritual director. Now, her last Sunday at Faith was a few weeks ago, and our family has stepped into this time of transition and uncertainty with the hope that wealth and winning are not the purpose of life. I mean, we're giving up an income, and, well, we're pastors, so we're not used to winning anyway. So this has been the culmination of months of praying and talking and wrestling with what Karen feels God is calling her to do. Now, trusting that this is the right thing, that this is where and how God is leading, trusting that we're being who God has created us to be, well, that's our current struggle. And when people who know about it ask about it, I'm really good at acting like this is all perfect and easy and great. But it's scary because it's unknown. It's a leap of faith for Karen, for me, for our family. And I gotta tell you, it's kind of a new thing now for our family, all of us to be together in worship. And last Sunday at 11 a.m. worship, I was able to sit with Karen and our kids, Hannah and Ian, and my parents too, who are members here. We were all together. We sang, we prayed, and as we were standing up to move into Holy Communion, right before we were to hear once again the words of Jesus' promised presence coming to us in the bread and the wine, Karen leaned over to me and whispered, "My heart is so full right now." And then suddenly, I don't know, my cheeks were wet. I don't know. It's like my eyes started leaking or something. I just couldn't stop crying because my heart was full too. Because I was here together in this place with my family. And together with this community that on that particular day was working to fill the truck for the cross food shelf, to make sure that the hungry are fed. This community that works with those who are and have been imprisoned. This community that cares for the sick, all that Matthew 25 sheep and goats stuff. So my eyes were leaking and wouldn't stop for the rest of worship. Because it felt like God was letting me know in this small way that our family will be okay. And because God was using this community to tell me that very thing. And in the words of Mary Oliver, this must mean something. I don't know what. Because I don't know who God created you to be, and I often wonder who God created me to be. But I know the world needs you. The world needs me. God needs you, and God needs me. I hope we can all figure out the rest together. And maybe that's the purpose of life. Amen.